I want to begin. I know a lot of you, because I had Sergeant at dinner with me, are veterans of the United States military active duty. Please stand up. We always ask you to stand up and let us thank you for your service to the United States. At a dining out, they call it, Newport Beach. He was up to see the 1st Marine Division. They'd just come back from Iraq, and he was moving from table to table. And he and his friends in Hollywood, they just don't come out to political events. You will more often than not find them at a hospital or at a fundraising event. His pal Gary Sinise sent me a text yesterday and asked me if I wouldn't plug tonight that on 11/3 he's doing a benefit for a couple of Marine Corps veterans who lost 3 limbs. He builds houses for them all over the United States, goes out and raises money for them. John does so much for the troops as well. They walk the walk and they talk the talk, but of course you guys fight the wars, and we very much appreciate you for having done that. I want to say very, very quickly, we're here because great sponsors like Wings and great local folks like Cornerstone and all the other great sponsors, but 2 of them brought us out. LetFreedomRingUSA.com is where you go to get the information you need on a daily basis to find out what the issues are. So please visit it tonight. And then if you have an email, Tony stood up here and he really, I thought, communicated well. Don't support the left. Don't give them a dime, even when you don't know you're giving them a dime. So, sign up for Reagan.com. It's the first thing I'm doing after this tour, so that not only can I bedevil my liberal friends, but I can keep my information out of the hands of the wonderfully smart people who don't understand a thing about politics at Google and the rest of them who are running us into the ground. Very briefly put, I want to give as much time back to the court as they say, so that we can hear from my colleagues and from John about some of the most important issues of the day. But I will say this election, as you all know, depends upon Ohio. Ohio depends upon Cuyahoga County, and I'll also say the Steel Valley, my hometown of Warren, Youngstown, where it doesn't mean you have to win an absolute majority, you just have to close the gap. And Rob Frost is a great chairman in Cuyahoga County. You have a great Lake County chairman who's here tonight, gave me this, and you can all make a difference. 1,600 people. Force multiplier here. If you talk to 20 people each, that's 32,000 contacts more. That could be the difference between now and the election. 10 more bucks at joshmandel.com gives them a little bit more of an effort. I'll be with Josh tomorrow in Columbus and with Governor Kasich. Please understand, you are the election. Michael reminds me, we went to Minnesota the weekend before the election in 2008, and Norm Coleman and Al Franken. We did what we could, we didn't do enough. 200 vote election, 200 votes, that's a third of, that's a 10th of the room here. So please don't underestimate what you can do in the next 10 days on your own to persuade, cajole, remind, drive to the polls, or otherwise block from attending in a legal way, those who want to be there. Thank you, it's good to be back, John.
This is a moment when I'm hoping somebody else picks up the microphone. You know, obviously I'm scared. I'm scared about this election. People have talked to me and said, you know, well, what do you think, John? Can we win? And I always say, we must win. And certainly we must. So my heart beats, you know, I push myself. If I get down, I put a smile on my face, I keep going. You know, I do as much as I can. I'm so happy to be out here with all of you, with these great heroes, because they are American heroes, who have done everything they can to educate America, you know, who have made an unrelenting effort to reach the hearts and the souls and the minds of America with the truth it faces at this time. So I'm happy to be here because I don't want to sit around and say, well, what can I do? I got to do something, right? You all probably feel the same way. I want to say a little something about our heroes. I go to these hospitals and visit our troops. It's quite heart-wrenching, I have to tell you, to sit with people who have lost arms and legs, sometimes blinded, these young people, and they question whether it was not all in vain when they see Obama pull our troops out of Iraq and leave it as a haven for our enemies. And as far as I'm concerned, they are leaving Iraq on a platter. And they're doing the same thing now in Afghanistan. And I see the Democratic convention and I hear Bill Clinton say all these wonderful words about our great vice president and say how he made this magnificent transition. And I'm enraged, really. I've done a movie recently, which is I've done a movie, a Dracula movie, this was because in my childhood I had a lot of fun at those movies, and I saw the opportunity, and they wanted me to play Van Helsing, and so I said, well, yes, I'll do it. I'll do this movie. And as I read it, I said, well, you know, there's a good theme in here. There's a theme about good against evil. And if I'm playing Van Helsing, you know, I can do battle with the evil. And then as I'm reading the script, I said, well, here's an opportunity. I'll make a little speech here. Because every movie I do, I try to put a little information in it. You know, to the degree I am able, you see. So I actually was able to write a little speech. Now, whether they cut it or not, I don't know. But I made this little speech. Now, you know, in this movie, I got to say sentences like this. See, I have to do a little acting here. I have to pay my way, too. That's my craft, you see. So I had to say words like this. You don't want to be alone when the undead return. Oh, what a fantastic moment. And then I started talking, and then I have this scene in a tavern where I'm talking to this fellow who's a demon slayer. And I say to him, I said, what we are fighting here is no ordinary demon, but a vampire. And then I say, Lord Dracula is stronger than 100 men, and as cunning as he is strong. He lures his followers with promises of eternal life and beauty. And I can see Michael Medved when he sees this movie go, oh, what the hell happened to John? And then he goes to write it. I can just see it, you know. Ladies and gentlemen, I saw a movie last night. It was interesting. And then he'll rush through the credits, you know, to try to hide me, you know, as a friend. And in this scene, you see, I describe everything, and I say, you know, say to this fellow, he's the demon slayer, I say, now that, and I tell him all the terrible things that Dracula does. You know, if you're bitten, you know, you just have to pray for a quick death and all of this thing. And then I say to him, I say, my warrior friend, now that I have told you all this, is this danger a price you are willing to pay? And he says, I do not fear it. And then I look to my young disciples and I say, pay attention, young ones. Throughout history, whenever barbaric poisons have taken hold and evil seems poised to flood the earth, heroes have always risen up, willing even to sacrifice themselves that future generations may have the opportunity to seek peace. These heroes are from God Himself. I am always humbled to be in their presence, and I have striven always to be one of them. My tribute, really. When I was thinking of all you military fellows, you know, the people who step up for us. This generation is especially impressive to me, and they have my heart. But at this time, there is a battle against evil, and it is trying to overtake our country. It is a battle from without and within. And you are the warriors. And these certainly are the warriors who have stood up at this time. Much love to you all. I'm so proud to be with you.
John Voight himself is one of those heroes raised up by God, is he not? I'm going to keep the spotlight on John for a moment, if you don't mind, John, because you did not arrive in Hollywood the conservative that you are now. You started out not unlike Michael Medved on the other side of the political spectrum. Tell us a little bit about your odyssey and how you came to found Friends of Aid, which is an organization of over 2,000 conservatives within the Hollywood entertainment film industry. Tell us how you came through that journey to the point where you find us here tonight inspiring us with your message, with your story, with your patriotism.
Well, first of all, many people know, and there are maybe some of you in this room as old as I, and you know where I was in the 60s. It was a very destructive time, the 60s, and Dennis Prager's just written a book, which is a wonderful book, and I recommend it heartily. And it talks about the movement of the left and how it's taken over. He's an expert on it. He spent his years in radio examining it for us. And the left began in this country its real ascendance, as far as I'm concerned, in the 60s. And at the base of it, of course, was Marxism. And then there was a little bit, as a little dash of political correctness, you see. And there was many other ingredients in it. But what happened during the 60s was that this poison took root. And we have those kids who were out, young people out in the streets. Some of you may be here. I was one of them at the end of the 60s, early 70s, and I'm ashamed to have been caught up in that hysteria. But that propaganda is being taught to our kids now, and it has been for quite a while, by the same people who were out in the streets in the 60s. And rest assured that all of this trouble with Iraq, when people were fighting against our work in Iraq to liberate this country and set it on the right path, these people who were rallying against that were people were from the 60s and taught from the people of the 60s. So it was the same crowd. Now, what happened to me? I saw what happened when this left-wing group that we were, marching in the streets became successful. Right before North Vietnam was about to surrender, we pulled back and we surrendered. And the result of that was that 250 million people, 2.5 million people, I'm sorry, not the math guy, there's one of the guys that's a math guy, were slaughtered in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And I saw the left, all the people that were saying, these people are going to embrace if we pull out. We're the problem there. And what happened is the Viet Cong came down and took over, and there was this real slaughter. So I have blood on my hands. And Hollywood has blood on its hands from that point in time. And I saw the left turn their backs on that information even. You can talk to them today and they'll say, no, that never happened. So that was the beginning for me of waking up. And it was a hard process and it didn't happen all at once. So when I look at my peers in Hollywood, I say, I understand you guys. You just don't know what's going on. You don't know who you are. I remember Al Pacino, I'm going to drop a name. Al Pacino and I were sitting next to each other at one point, and there was a fellow on stage who was making a speech who was of questionable character. And Al turned to me and said, he's not who he is he? And that's it. They're not who they are. Really, those guys out there, they don't know. So I pray for them. And I root for them, and I go out and I walk into the cafeterias and into the makeup trailers, and I stay. When I go in, I mean, they go, it's like, it's like a Dracula movie. They go like this, but they don't have that protection because they're not Christians. But anyway, I'm so glad to be here with you all.
Thank you, John. I'm now going to go immediately to questions, and where there is a name with a question, I will try to read it. Hopefully I won't mangle the pronunciation. The first one, however, is unsigned. I'm going to ask Dennis to respond to it. It is written in such small print that no one over the age of 40 could have possibly written it. Let me read you this question. It says, I am passionate because I am worried. I am surrounded by liberal viewpoints every minute of every day and am still a minority. As you may have concluded, I am a college student. I find that when I discuss politics with people, it often becomes an argument because I have a burning passion for the conservation of what America is and was. How can I speak diplomatically to my peers so that they may consider my point of view rather than just shouting me down because I'm labeled as a conservative bigot? Dennis.
Well, we do that for a living, in effect, and it takes a long time to answer that, and I'm not sure that for most college students it's even available, because they will shout you down. They will shout you down for two primary reasons. One is that leftism is emotion-based, not intellect-based. The confusion of college and intellectuality is a problematic form, and I don't mean that sarcastically. College is an emotion-based place where you don't study what is great, what is noble, what is true. You study race, gender, and class. You are attending a left-wing seminary when you attend virtually any college in America. I'm not including the natural sciences, obviously, although on occasion they are politicized. Overwhelmingly, the problems lie in what are called the liberal arts, which unfortunately have become literally the liberal arts, which is very, very unfortunate. The very fact that you could have a march at Stanford University with people chanting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Western Civ has got to go," when Western Civ has given us, by and large, the finest art, the finest literature, and the finest ways to govern human beings with dignity. They happen to have been produced overwhelmingly in the West. I know classical music very well. I periodically conduct orchestras in Southern California. And you ask the Japanese, who do you listen to when you want to hear the greatest music? And while they will love their own Japanese music, and they should, they will say Bach. The greatest Bach interpretations of the cantatas, that is Bach's great sacred choral works, are now coming from a man named Suzuki in Japan, who's recording all of them for a record label over the last decade. A Swedish record label, right? This, that is correct. And so, this has been denied. You go to college, college is, I return to this point, it is emotion-based. And the other is that it is what I call a left-wing seminary. The ratio of professors who are on the left to professors who are on the right in the liberal arts has been actually documented. We know by contributions to parties, to candidates, and we know by which party people are registered in. And it is approximately 40-1 as a general rule. Sometimes it's 100-1. They did an actual survey at the University of Colorado at Boulder, and it was 40-1. And the one, is retired. He's now he's a professor emeritus at the age of 36. Listen, I give this analogy. Ask your friends, to answer you even more precisely, ask your friends this question. If you knew that a kid were taken from elementary school through high school, through college and graduate school, and was only taught by people who believed firmly in biblical Christianity, Bible-based Christianity. They were not allowed to watch television or see any secular movies or meet any secular thinkers or read any secular books. Would you say that that person had been brainwashed? And of course they'll say, well, of course. Well, you're no different. Through no fault of your own, no insult intended, you are that child. You have not confronted intellectual religious thinkers, intellectual conservative thinkers. You have been as immersed in liberalism and leftism as that child has been immersed in religiosity. You have not been exposed to the other side. And when they are exposed, they are changed. That is why universities are very careful not to invite people like us to speak there. And on the rare occasions that they do, isn't it interesting that if Ann Coulter goes to a university, she needs bodyguards, but if Noam Chomsky goes to a university, he does not? Now, why is that? Because there's no threat to freedom of speech from the right. There are only threats to freedom of speech from the left. There is so much you could ask your friends, and that is why we do our work, is to try to help you in that way, why we write our books. It's why I started Prager University. We try to do in 5 minutes an undoing of the damage of the university in 4 years. And it's working. The latest, and I really do hope you'll go. I'm not asking you for money, though we obviously are financed, but it's free to the public. The latest one is 5 minutes on capital punishment. I believe it can change a lot of people's minds. We can do this, but it is up to you, the dear college student who wrote that. It is up to you. You have a moral obligation to learn the arguments. And you know my idea, and with this I conclude my answer, prefer clarity to agreement. One example. Instead of arguing with Henry Waxman, who was on my show, one of the most liberal congressmen in Congress, I asked him a question. and I said, Congressman Waxman, I'm just curious, what percentage of income tax rate do you believe would hurt the economy? And he answered, well, Dennis, the truth is I haven't given that much thought. The most activist liberal in Congress in many ways, and I don't mean to hurt him or insult him, I know him personally, he's a very decent individual, but it gives you an idea, it's not thought through. You mean you keep asking for raised taxes but don't have in your mind a number that can be counterproductive? This is, do that with your fellow students. Just ask questions. We